It might be a pain in the ass to cover it.
No, it's actually not bad. I did it 2 years ago in Pittsburgh.
Well, why don't you let the guy who's actually covering the team answer that question?
Well, he'll have more information than I would. I saw him tweet out a little while ago.
Goodness.
The game is still on, but
right.
I don't know.
But
Dave Isaac.
It might be a pain in the ass for Dave to cover these things, and you're sitting there like, no, the one time that I was at one of these things, it was smooth.
Actually, I was at all. No, I wasn't in Boston for the Winter Classic game, but I liked it because the football press box is actually better than the hockey. The hockey press box.
Well, they put you at the top of the arena, right?
Yeah, in the football press box, you're like at a decent level there, and it's bigger. The Eagles press box, I'm sure, is larger. Well, the Flyers press box is actually pretty long. But Dave Isaac with us now. Now, Dave, you tweeted out a little while ago, the game is on as planned, but what if it is raining at 8 o'clock tomorrow night? Do they just cancel this game? Do they try again the next day? How's this work?
I think we would have to wait and see just how bad it is. I think they're willing to play in some level of rain. I think when it becomes like torrential is when they would have to stop. And I don't know if they would try and hold out like a baseball game and just have a little rain delay, or if they would, if it was before the game began, certainly then they would probably be more likely to postpone it to Sunday. But Sunday, I don't know if Sunday looks great either. So you guys were talking about the press box. The most important thing is that's indoors. So
yes.
no skin off my teeth.
Got an outdoor. You got an indoor press box for those outdoor games. But so the possibility could arise that they could play the game on Sunday then.
Yeah, I think that's possible. But the NHL said that they won't make any calls until noon tomorrow. I don't know what service they use to look at weather reports. The one that I see, it's still calling for rain at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they have a bit of higher technology.
Interesting. All right. So Flyers, Penguins tomorrow night, Stadium Series at Lincoln Financial Field. It is supposed to be an 8 o'clock start. Noon tomorrow, you said, Dave, is when they're going to make an official announcement on the game, or just an update?
Yeah, that's when they're going to have their next update. And the update could be as simple as we're still on 8 hours from now, or it could be, you know what, now that we see an updated forecast that's a little closer to the mark, maybe they would change their minds. But certainly nothing will happen before noon tomorrow.
If they do go, how much of, or I guess who benefits more, if anybody, from it being a little iffy weather conditions?
I guess it depends on which way the wind is blowing and who's facing that way. Like Carter Hart played in an outdoor game at the World Juniors, and he talked the other day about how in the third period of that game it was coming down so hard that they actually stopped the game halfway through the period to have teams switch sides just so it would be a little bit more even in terms of skating into the wind and weather conditions and that sort of thing. So if they run into a situation like that, that's something that the NHL has done before with these outdoor games, is blowing the whistle dead at the 10-minute mark, regardless of where the play is, and have the two teams switch sides.
I do remember it being very cold in Pittsburgh for that game 2 years ago. Stadium Series tomorrow night.
Windy.
It was windy as well, yes. Dave, Carter Hart, I mean, he got pulled a couple of nights ago, did not play very well again last night. So you look at the last couple of games, any idea or clues to something going on there, or just not playing very well?
Well, I think even though both situations were 3 goals against on 9 shots, I think they were a little bit different. I think that the one against Tampa was more a case of Scott Gordon saying the team in front of the goalie needs to wake up. Last night, I thought was the worst of the two. And, you get put in a strange situation there because you're coming off a game where you've just pulled him, and now you're doing the same thing. But I thought last night was a little bit more because of Hart's play than it was against the Lightning the other night. Again, 3 goals on 9 shots. The one goal that goes in on the short side where he seems to be hugging the post and there's only enough space for the puck to go in vertically, and that's exactly what happens. I guess he could hug the post a little bit tighter, obviously, but he played that one pretty well. The other 2 goals, I think he kind of wants back and weren't great plays and weren't indicative of the way that he's played so far in the NHL. So I think it looks a little bit worse because it came on the heels of them having pulled him in the prior game, but I'm more concerned about the game in Montreal than I am about the game against the Lightning.
Well, and then the question, I guess, happens is, all right, he's not played well. He's getting pulled from the last 2 games. Does he get to start tomorrow night in a very high-profile and also important game?
Yeah, I think they've made it pretty clear with the last week or two here that he's their starting goaltender. They have another guy who they just acquired in Cam Talbot who hasn't even dressed for a game yet, and Brian Elliott, who's come on in relief in both of these 2 games here. But I don't think Brian Elliott's part of their long-term plans. Last night, Montreal is one of the teams that they're chasing, so there's a little bit more distance now between the Flyers and the Canadiens, but Pittsburgh lost. They lost by 4 goals as well. So the Flyers are still in a spot where they're no further back than they were before the game last night. I think they would go to Hart again. He's their guy. It's not really every game's a desperate situation, I guess, at this time of year, but I don't see any reason why they would go with anybody other than Hart tomorrow.
Dave Isaac covers the Flyers for the Courier Post at Dave G. Isaac on Twitter. And then you have the backdrop, Dave, of the trade deadline on Monday, which could be Wayne Simmons' last game. I don't know if there's any other names that you think potentially could be playing their final Flyers game tomorrow night.
Yeah, there's a couple. I think Wayne Simmons is, the most obvious one for sure. And you see the trade that went down today with the Blue Jackets acquiring Matt Duchene, and one would think that if they were doing that, then they would keep Artemi Panarin, who everybody kind of thinks is the number 1 target here. So if that comes off the board, then all of a sudden the price goes up for Wayne Simmons, you would think. Other names that could potentially move, Elliott's one where I'm kind of scratching my head why they've dressed him in these last 2 games. He's played okay. Maybe another team would be looking to pick him up for goaltending depth. I don't know if the Flyers would have to eat some of that salary, or maybe it depends on what the cost is in a trade like that. Michael Raffl's another one, purely because he's a pending free agent, and it's tough to tell if he's really in Chuck Fletcher's plans. And then the only other name that you'd throw out there is Radko Gudas, because there's always a premium for right-handed shot defensemen. And he won't play tomorrow because he's serving the second game of that 2-game suspension. So if a team did trade for him after that, they would be able to use him immediately. It's not like they would have to wait for him or anything like that. But I think that's only because teams are always looking for help on the right side of the defense. I think Gudas has been their steadiest defenseman all season long. Raffle certainly hasn't played poorly. It's just a matter of how much Chuck Fletcher is willing to do. And I don't think it's going to be much. Like, I think Simmons is probably going to be the only move that they do make. I think he's going to do major surgery on this roster in the offseason whenever the Flyers season is over, whether that's after the regular season or if they do get into the playoffs.
It'll be interesting, guys, to see what happens with Simmons. I equated the other day that, like, if they trade Simmons away, you wonder if it's almost like the year the Phillies traded Bobby Abreu and then just got, pretty good afterwards. Not that Simmons is a problem or anything. He's a great guy in that locker room, as you can attest to, Dave. But, they have been playing pretty well. But Fletcher's in a really odd spot where, hey, do we make a run because we've been playing well, or do I have to be realistic? And I guess being realistic is probably the better way to go here.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that the dilemma for him is more, to what degree do I sell off pieces to this roster? I don't think they're in any kind of situation here 6 points out where they would look to add. Certainly not in the rental market. Maybe if they were to add a piece that's under contract for the next couple of years, that would be one thing. But the Flyers are certainly not in the rental market. I think it's just a matter of how much he cuts away from this roster. And that's why I said I think Simmons is probably the only guy there, because the price is going to be much higher now than it would be in the off season, around draft time or right before free agency, when you're really only trading his rights because there's no games left on that contract.
Dave Isaac, the Courier Post, he covers the Flyers at Dave G. Isaac. It's tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, Stadium Series. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Update at noon tomorrow to find out what is going to happen with this game, weather in the forecast, at Dave G. Isaac on Twitter. Thanks, pal. I'll see you tomorrow night.
All right, sounds good.